I did it the hard way.
That's Jesse Dayton doing it the hard way. His new album, The Hard Way Blues, has just been released, so we tracked down Jesse to Austin, where the Texas guitar slinger is ready to talk about playing with Waylon Jennings and working with Shooter. But first, before we get into the music, a bit of politics.
I think that there's a good chance that we might have a felon for a president for the first time in the history of our country, and that's it's absolutely terrifying.
I agree. Although we may have had some felons in the past, they just never got convicted.
Well, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with you. And, if you say anything concerning Trump, then the first thing that people say is like, well, this is bad too.
Yeah, that's true.
And this is bad too.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a complete and utter loss for degrees.
Yes.
And degrees matter, but they only matter to people who are experts and who are scientists and have rules that they follow in order to find the truth.
Right.
But to everyone else, degrees don't seem to matter. So, without getting too crazy into it, it's, and I'm no crazy liberal. I'm a pretty mainstream Texas voter who's, I still own guns, and, there's a lot of old baggage that I carry from being in this family of mine for generations here in this state.
Yep.
But, we're also, we want everybody to just come in and kind of relax a little bit and let's get our common sense back, because it's gone on the far left and it's gone on the far right. And the rest of us are looking at everybody like, okay, can we just, can we get it back together? Because, there's this ridiculous American exceptionalism thing that these, conservatives throw out. But, there are degrees to that. And when there's a major catastrophe in the world, they don't call Beijing or Moscow. Right. They call Washington, D.C.
Yep.
Almost always,
yep.
And so for me, it's just so crazy over here right now. You don't know, you got some people who are anti-patriotism and some people are, whatever. But for me, the biggest change I've seen, especially through music and through just entertainment and art in general in America, but outside of politics, it's just when the corporations came in, everything literally changed.
Yeah.
It was always heading that way. Sure, you can always say that, Patsy Cline didn't want to sing pop ballads. She wanted to sing hillbilly music. Right. I mean, it's been going this way for a long time. In terms of, they want soup, feed them soup. But it really started getting crazy, I think, during the Reagan years, and that those big corporations came in. They took over all the radio stations.
Deregulated, and that let everybody go. And
yeah. So I think we're seeing, to make a long story longer, I think we're seeing all the beginnings of that.
Yep.
The fruit of that now.
The chickens are coming home to roost.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and so that attitude, which is reasonable and fairly measured, I imagine that doesn't go down well with some of the people who come out to see you.
I mean, sometimes, I never get on stage and talk about politics because they're trying to get a babysitter and pay for enough gas to get there. And, they want to have a few beers at the show. And, so I go out and I give them a great show.
Yep. All right.
And I that's what I do. So
very good.
Looking at my audience is the same as looking up at the stands at a baseball game in America. It's not really conservatives and liberals. It's people who are all taking a break from that so they can enjoy something. And,
Yep.
I love Joe Strummer, but I'm not Joe Strummer.
Yeah, gotcha. And the Yankees are doing very well this year.
Yeah, I'm an Astros fan. So,
sorry about that.
Yeah.
Well, at least you're not a White Sox fan.
No, we've kind of got we've been riding kind of a little dynasty for the last few years. So,
Yeah, yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
Very good. All right, so let's get into this record that you got, the Hardway Blues. You got Shooter Jennings producing. How did that work out? How did the two of you kind of put this thing together?
Well, I met Shooter when I was playing guitar for Waylon Jennings. And in the 90s, I was a very young guy there. I think I was 23, 24, maybe 25. Shooter was like 15. I was actually closer to Shooter's age than I was to the guys in the band. And, you know, Shooter would come up we were making this record called Right for the Time, which is a killer outlaw country record that Waylon made in like 96 or 97.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of it. I got to play, you know, a lot of guitar on that record. And it was kind of my first big record that I got to play on that was, you know, big to me in terms of, you know, just getting called up to the majors,
Right.
as they say in baseball. And so I hung out with Shooter, and then you fast forward like, you know, 15 years later, and Shooter's won these Grammys, you know, and he's done all this great work, and he's become a big hot shot producer. And so I called him up and I said, hey, how about producing a record on your old boy here? And he said, absolutely, let's do it. So we went into this studio in Los Angeles, a bunch of great musicians, and man, we cut that record in 5 days.
Nice one. That's the best way.
I mean, we went in, we were all in the studio at the same time. It was old school. It wasn't all this like Pro Tools and fixing stuff. And it was just like, you know, I thought about some of my favorite classic rock records and how they would go in and make these things in a weekend, you know. So
is this one of your favorites?
Absolutely. I mean, ZZ Top, you know, ZZ Top, especially the first 5 records were like the soundtrack to my life, and everybody's who was a young, you know, Texan.
Yep.
Whether you were into country or rock and roll or whatever you were into, they were the kind of divining rod for all of us.
Yep. I remember seeing them way back in like 72, 73. They opened for Uriah Heep in this big dome building. It was horrible sound, but man, they rocked ZZ Top.
Easy Living, Uriah Heep.
That's right, very good.
Yeah.
That was their hit at the time.
Yeah, man, it was a big song, and that was a cool band. In terms of, I like that era. I'm a big fan of the era of hard rock.
Right.
Before it moved to Los Angeles and everybody started looking like girls and it was just kind of goofy.
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a Van Halen fan.
Right.
Everyone, you know, knows what a genius that guy was.
Yep.
But all the bands that it spawned, and I'm like that with a lot of scenes. If you just look at just scenes in general, the bands that they usually spawn afterwards are kind of, you know, I mean, good for them if they got in on the gravy train, but it doesn't mean I enjoy it. But I love that early stuff, like that old Hessian head rock, like, you know, ZZ Top, Thin Lizzy.
Aerosmith's a good example of that. Because
Aerosmith, you know, killer band, killer songwriters, you know, all that stuff. And that was before I got turned on to The Clash.
Right.
So that's all I listened to up until that.
Yep.
And then, you know, I was young and idealistic and I started like, you know, dipping my beak in all these different styles of music. But growing up where I grew up, man, it was all like Zydeco music. It was like full on honky tonk because I'm old enough to have gotten in on the end of all the cool shit.
Right. Gotcha.
I mean, so we had 24-hour Cajun stations with French-speaking DJs. We had Zydeco. We had black-owned rhythm and blues stations that were still playing like Johnny Guitar Watson
there you go.
and
Ain't that a
bunch of cool, you know, cool shit, you know. And we had honky tonk, man. And when I say honky tonk, not the 90s. country that came out of Nashville, but the stuff like Johnny Bush and like Twin Fiddles and Bob Wills and, you know, like real pedal steel guitar.
Yeah.
And all that stuff was so important. But I also listened to what everybody else was listening to. You know, if Creedence came on the radio, I'd freak out.
Yep. Yeah, those were the days. So do you feel like something like that exists now in a different way or form or place?
I mean, it does. It's a little bit more watered down.
Right.
You know, it's hard to go out and see, you know, a new country band from Nashville when you've seen Merle Haggard 17 times.
That's true.
And you saw like the coolest freaking country singer ever in the world. You know, you saw Willie or Waylon.
I was going to say, Willie just put out a new one.
Yeah. I mean,
what are you going to do there?
But it's different now. You know, now everything's cherry picked.
Yeah.
There's not really scenes. There used to be scenes when I was a kid.
Yep.
You know, there's a punk scene and a goth scene and a bunch of country bumpkins, you know, that go to the honky tonks. And then all the biker guys listen to Johnny Winter and ZZ Top. And then all the, you know, country guys were listening to Charlie Daniels and Willie Nelson and, you know, Jerry Jeff Walker and all that shit,
yep.
you know.
Yep.
So I'm just glad I got to live through that. But now, no, it's not. I mean, not to be a Debbie Downer, but it's just not. It's just not as cool as it used to be.
All right. Well, let's get into this record that you got. I'll tell you the couple of songs that I really enjoyed the most that just immediately were like the storytelling songs. So like the Ballad of Boyd Elder just like drew me in immediately. And the other one was Esther Pearl.
In a burned farmhouse at the end of the road, boarded up and abandoned from a strange episode, and haunted by the Underground Railroad. Well, a Creole woman built it in 1863. Her name was Esther Pearl from Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Was a French hailer and a voodoo priest.
Well, I'll tell you, a really cool thing happened to me. I had an older brother and sister who were hanging out in Austin during the whole like Armadillo World Headquarters,
sure. Yep.
Like
Commander Cody,
like yeah, when Outlaw Country was being born here, and all these guys, you know, no matter how cool characters they were, whether it was, you know, Willie or Michael Martin Murphy or whoever it was, you know, Sleep at the Wheel, they all needed songs.
Right.
And so they were going to Guy Clark and Townes Van Zandt, you know, and my brother took me to see Guy Clark and Townes Van Zandt at the Anderson Fair, which, by the way, I just played a show there on acoustics with just me and Lyle Love.
Oh man,
it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was such an honor to play with Lyle, and he brought me out on stage, and I got to play with him, and it was just us on our acoustics, you know, in a small club. But I saw Townes and Guy there, and I actually ended up meeting them later. And got to party with them a couple of nights, but those songs are heavily influenced by that whole Texas storyteller thing. And you know, they were all Lightning Hopkins fans. They were all like, so there was this kind of weird crossover that I think happens on my new record, where you've got a lot of heavy, deep East Texas country blues influence. You know, it's not. It's not like your typical Stevie Ray Vaughan thing, you know. There's some Lightning Hopkins, Mance Lipscomb, like stuff like that, but the words are more aligned with, like, you know, those songwriters that you know. I spent 10,000 hours, man, studying their songs. I mean, as much time as I spent playing guitar. And I think that's something out there you don't see a lot. A lot of times it's like, okay, let's get this verse over so the guy can shred for the audience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and you repeat the line and you do the Chicago thing and the callback thing, and that's cool. I like that too, but I like getting into stories and taking people on journeys, and I try to do that on those songs. So thanks for bringing them up. The Boyd Elder song is a pretty amazing story.
Boyd Elder was a Lone Star man, painted longhorn skulls on demand. Kept a house out in Valentine, hung out in Mappa when the lights would shine. Boyd liked his silver tequila, lost horn saloon with Sheila. Said L.A. was so illegal, back in the 70s, flying with the Eagles. Well, he's riding through the desert in a Cadillac, with a trunk full of longhorn skulls in the back. Working on a Dayton, working on a bus, loving all the women and running from the fuzz.
What happened was, I went out to Marfa, Texas. Okay, Marfa is literally in the middle of nowhere.
Yep. Out in West Texas,
And,
right?
without sounding like a cliche Texan who's like spouting off about how big his state is, because it's so ridiculous, It's faster from El Paso to go to Los Angeles than it is to Houston.
Right.
So that's how big. So we drive 8 hours to Marfa.
Yeah.
And it's me and Kinky Friedman. and the whole time I'm just gobbling up all of Kinky's funny witticisms, and he's Mark Twain to me.
Yeah.
And we're having a great time, and he keeps telling me about this guy named Boyd Elder. And then Joe Ely had talked to me about Boyd Elder, and he's like, everybody knows Boyd. And so I get out there, and I can't wait to meet this guy. And he's this artist who he started out with Terry Allen, and him and the guy that sung "I Fought the Law," Bobby Fuller.
Yeah.
They were really good friends. So they went out to L.A. in the early 60s, and Boyd got some kind of like scholarship to some art school out there. And Bobby Fuller wrote "I Fought the Law" and the Law Won and became a global superstar. So Boyd's just hanging out in L.A. and he meets Dennis Hopper.
Okay.
And Dennis Hopper comes over to his house. He goes, "Hey, man, I just got back from San Francisco. I never tried this acid stuff before, but I got it." So they did some acid, and he got these longhorn cattle skulls out of the back of his car and brought them up to the apartment, and he just freaked out and painted them all. And this was like before anyone had done that. And so Dennis Hopper said, "Oh my God, I've seen the face of art." And he called the whole LA intelligentsia, Ed Ruscha, and
Right.
The art critic for the LA Times, and Joni Mitchell, and the Eagles before they were the Eagles with Linda. All these people were there for Boyd's thing, and it was a huge success. And then so the Eagles ended up using his stuff on the record covers.
Okay.
So those skulls on all the record covers are Boyd's.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And Boyd ended up doing a bunch of really cool stuff. And anyway, I went and hung out with him. We drank silver tequila and until the wee hours in the morning. And, he met everybody from the Stones to Joe Strummer to you name it.
Yep.
And it was just a fascinating guy. So I was like, man, when I heard that he passed away, I was like, we have to memorialize this guy.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah. It's going to be, it's nice passing those stories on and keeping those people going and their legacies and what they've done, because it's not like everybody's heard of them. So good on you.
Yeah.
It's got to feel good. So overall, so the record itself, how do you look at it? I mean, you just came off of this one that you did with Samantha Fish. So, and that did pretty well for you. And are you thinking in terms of a career arc, or you need to go from here to there to here, and this needs to do this?
Well, not really. I mean, I think that kind of like is a fun killer, you
Right.
know. Like I let my like I have a team of people like manager, agent, all these people, and they do a really good job of like planning stuff out and stuff like that. But for me, I'd had this record in the can before me and Samantha recorded Death Wish
Right.
Blues.
Okay.
And so I just sat on it until after the Death Wish ride was over, which lasted like 16 months and was a whirlwind world tour crazy, thing that we had us a little hit record, and it was great I think it was our biggest selling record for either one of us. And um so my managers were like, well, the day that as soon as you guys get back from Australia, that's it. So we're going to release the solo record.
Cool.
But we've been releasing singles for about the past 6 months. And the record is, decidedly more of a blues record, but it's not a straight
No.
blues record. There's some rock and roll and some folk and some a little bit of country rock and.
Yep. And you're about to hit the road now. I think you're playing some kind of cavern fest in a couple of days.
Yeah, we're on our way. We're doing the West Coast. We start in New Mexico, go to Arizona, go to Cali, go to Oregon, and all the way. We end the tour up in Seattle. We wanted to see how far we could get from Texas, and that's about it without hitting Canada.
Right.
So yeah, it's I'm excited, man, to go out and play with my band, and we got this really cool 3-piece thing that sounds like almost like the James Gang, but it also has this acoustic thing that we're doing,
Right.
which is this really cool kind of country blues, and there's some hillbilly stuff in there, and so we're not beating the people over the head the whole concert, and it's a really cool show. I'm excited about it.
Well, you have a lot of stuff to choose from. You've been doing this for a while. Is it difficult to put set list together?
Well, there's stuff that you got to play,
Sure.
and because people, like I said, they got to get babysitters and
Right.
gas money, and it's just the inflation's so crazy in America, and I've always prided myself on being kind of a working class guy, I spend my money on vintage guitars and old motorcycles, and I've got a good pair of jeans and some biker boots and a black T-shirt.
What
And
else do you need?
I can get out there and rock with the best of them, man. No matter how shiny your suit is,
Yeah.
bring it on.